Hi everybody and welcome. Today I'm going to be showing you the basics of how to edit video in Adobe Premiere Pro. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail in this one. I want to keep it brief and respect your time so that you can get editing as soon as possible. Alright, so when we first load into Adobe Premiere Pro, we're going to see something like this. I'm going to click on New Project, and then it pops up this dialog window where I have the chance to name this project. We'll just call it Project X. And there's a lot of other settings which I usually don't mess with at all. Alright, then it loads me into the workspace here. So I've got all of these different workspaces, one for learning, assembly, editing, effects, and others. So I usually only use editing and effects, but the assembly window can be a bit handy for importing your media to begin. So I'll actually use that here. I'm going to open up my Finder window, and I usually keep all of these files on my hard drive. And I recommend not keeping these files on a portable media like a flash drive or memory card, because if you want to go back in and work on your video editing later and you've taken the memory card out, Adobe's not going to be able to find those files. So put them on your hard drive or on some more permanent media. All right, I have got all my video files here and I'm going to drag them right over into this space. And I could also go and browse for them here in the media browser. But here we go, that's Project X. Now I will go to Editing, and that gives me a more reasonable view of my video timeline, which I want. So here's the sequence. I'm going to take the video clip that I want to start with, and I'm going to drag it over to the timeline here to create the first sequence. Now you notice that my audio does show up here, the waveform, and I definitely don't want to start the video until I actually start talking. So one of the first things you'll learn is you can just drag the edge of that clip to right about there, and I can just drag it back over here. Now I'm using the selection tool, which you can make sure you have selected using the V key at all times. That's a hotkey. Another very handy key would be the C key for cutting. It's the razor tool. So if I hit C, I can now click here and here, and then I go back to V to select this, and I hit the delete key. Now I'm going to want to drag this over to butt it up against my other clip, so there's no delay between. Alright, so that's the really easy basics of editing video. The C and the V key will come in handy so much, or you can click on the selection tool or the razor tool. Very rarely do I use any of these other tools. Now I'm going to want to get a few more video clips in here as well. I can drag this scroll bar here, and this one's actually for kind of a storytelling card game review that I did on my other channel, and there we go. Now this is actually a nice short one, so this is a good example of maybe I want to use this as some B-roll. What I generally would do is use the selection tool, V, and I'm going to make sure it doesn't go on the same track as my other clips. We've got 1, 2, 3 video clips, 1, 2, 3 audio clips here. If you need more, you can absolutely add more just by going add tracks, or you can take some away with delete tracks. But 3 is generally enough for the editing I do. I'm not doing anything too complex. So now let's say I want a little B-roll. I want to cut away from this clip right here to show this other thing instead. You can see that right here if I hit play using the space bar. Space bar is play and pause, another very handy hotkey. It will cut away for this little section here, and then at the end it cuts back to my main video 1 track. It will always default to the one that's on top. If you want to not show the one that's on top, you could just hit the toggle track output here, and it will actually make it disappear. If I turn it back on, there it comes back. Same with the audio tracks down here. I can mute a track if I want to, either temporarily or permanently. Now I'm going to import a few other things before I begin here. I like this subscribe text, by the way. If you want to subscribe to the channel, that'd be great. And there's this like text. You could always like this video. I often use those when I'm editing video for YouTube. And let's go ahead and put a song in as well. Here we go. We'll choose this one, Take the Lead. So I've got some of this imported here. You notice that I just dragged them right onto my timeline, or you could drag them right into the media browser here, but they do show up here as well. I've got everything right here. So if I want to add it once again, have 2 spots where it says like, I could do that. So the basics of editing, once again, I am often using the space bar to play, pause, finding things that I want to cut. I'm often using the zoom in and zoom out. You may have seen me doing a little of that. I hold down the Alt button and I scroll up on my mouse wheel to zoom in. That allows for more fine tuning in my editing, or down on the scroll wheel while I'm holding Alt to zoom out. If you're on a Mac with a trackpad, you can always just pinch to zoom. That's really handy. I do editing on both Mac and PC. There are very few differences between the PC and Mac version, so this tutorial should be good for both. If I want to select my razor tool, hit C, clip this right here, C, and then I go to V, select, and delete. Then I can always highlight multiple things like this and drag them over. Now I'm going to be missing this other stuff, so I can actually zoom way out and make sure I get everything like this, and zoom back in over here and make sure it all is getting moved equally to the left. Then I can see how it looks by hitting the space bar once again. All right, and there we go. Next up, let's talk about saving. Control S, very important. Save early, save often. Nothing is worse than losing 2 or 3 hours of video editing. Yes, there is an auto save that works sometimes, but I've still lost hours of work before because the autosave is kind of iffy. Now, we did import a song here, but if we go over to this section, you'll notice that the audio is really, really loud for the music. So, yep, you can't hear what I'm saying. So if I want this to be background music, we're going to need to right-click on it, and we're going to go to Audio Gain. Then we can adjust the gain. I'll say I want to make it negative 30 decibels. That's usually a good amount to turn the music down. One of them was Companion's Tale. This box. Yep, and that's pretty good. I also am noticing if I'm playing my audio here, you can see that I'm getting up into the yellow and almost red sometimes, and I want to turn that down. So I often will take my audio, or all my video rather, and I will turn it negative 8 decibels. So I'm going to go ahead and do that at this time. Audio gain, highlight it all, negative 8. And that usually make sure that it's staying more around the 18 or 12 here rather than getting up into the 6 or close to 0. So you can see where the audio falls there, and that's a pretty good range there, around 18 or 12. If I want to get rid of some audio, let's say that I actually don't like my audio here and I just want to do voiceover. I can actually right click on that video track and I can say unlink, and that will unlink the audio and video. Now they're two separate things. I can move this audio if I want to, or I can just delete it completely and say, I'm going to start over and do some voiceover here. The way I do that, I'm zooming in with Alt and scroll wheel, and now I'm going to click on this microphone here to do some voiceover. You might have to go in and make sure in your preferences that your correct microphone is selected. Go to Preferences, Audio Hardware, and then make sure that you have the correct input device selected. That is the microphone. So I'm good to go. Then I just hit this microphone right here and I can start recording. Make sure you turn your volume down because otherwise you'll be able to hear yourself with like a 1 second delay. So there we go, I'm recording, and now I will hit stop. I just hit the space bar to stop recording that, and there we go, I'm all set with my voiceover. Another really handy thing to talk about is transitions. So if you want some audio or video transitions, let's say I want to fade out my music, I usually click on the effects workspace here. You can get to them down here as well, but this brings up this whole sidebar here with all the effects. So I'm going to actually go audio transitions here and crossfade. I'm just going to do constant power as my fade out. So there's kind of a constant fade. I want it to fade out for quite a while there, so I'll just drag it out a little bigger, drag on the edge of it. So if I want a nice smooth transition between these two right here so it's not so abrupt on my video, I can just drag this cross dissolve over, and now we get a nice dissolve between. So if that's desirable, you can do that. There are lots of other options as well. Now for some of this like and subscribe stuff right here, let's try dragging some of this in. Definitely you're going to notice right off the bat, like that's right across my face. So if you want to move that around, you can go to the editing space and you can click on effects controls for the image there. So I click on the image, effects controls, and then motion. Motion will allow me to move it around, to resize it if I want to, make it a little bigger. I can rotate it like this. There are all kinds of things you can do there. And let's say I also want a little transition there. I can click back on the effects, and while I have that selected, we can get a little bit of a kind of fly, make it fly in or something, like going to slide, And let's go to push right here. If I drag that over to the beginning, you can now see got a nice push onto the screen with my like button. And then let's say I want to do the reverse on the other side. I can actually click on that transition, drag it on there and click, and then I just say reverse. I want to fly back the same way. So flies in, and then a couple seconds later flies back the same way. So in that particular situation, the like and subscribe text was actually an image that I made in Photoshop, a PNG with a transparent background. But if you want to do actual text within Premiere Pro, you can do that as well. You would simply want to click on the text tool right here, the type tool, and then you can put that anywhere in your video here. And so you can just click right there. It creates a text box, and I can type coming soon or whatever I need to type there. If you want to get some options for editing that text, you can click on this little drop down arrow here for text. You can change the font, the size, the color, and lots of other things. You can also click on your selection tool with V, and you can drag it around. You can resize it if you need to, and rotate it and do all those things that you can do with images as well. Let's say I want to make it a little bit longer, or you can add a transition, do whatever you need to do there. So that's about all I'm going to show you in this video for the editing. I definitely hope to show you more in future videos, but let's talk about how you would export it if you want to make it a finished video file now. So what you can do is you can go to File and then Export Media, or you can just hit Control M. I can give it a name that I want the file to have here. Testing. There we go. And we'll hit Save. And you can check what kind you want to make it. You can have H.264. I usually like to go in and make it 1080p Full HD for YouTube. I'm pretty happy with the way that looks, and I generally am doing these for YouTube. And then I click the export button, and that is usually going to take a few minutes. You can see it's going to take 3 minutes here. I would say usually for me, for a 10-minute video, it's going to be a little less than 10 minutes, but it depends on a lot of different factors. So be patient. If you have a slow computer, this could take a while. So that is going to do it for this Adobe Premiere Pro tutorial. I will definitely do more detailed tutorials in the future and getting into more advanced things. So definitely let me know what you would like to see down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please leave me a like. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on future videos. All right, happy editing, everybody. Take care.